Last week, Joanne preached the story of Jacob, renamed Israel, and in the intervening chapters between that story and what Victor just read us today, Jacob's sons have picked up the family tradition of trickery. To get rid of their father's son Joseph, they sold him to traders and then told dear old dad that he had been murdered. Nothing better than biblical family values, is there? In truth, Joseph ended up in the court of Pharaoh and helped Pharaoh prepare for a coming famine. Eventually, the brothers' deception is uncovered, but only after the famine has arrived back home, and Jacob sends his family to Egypt seeking food. The story of Joseph and his family helps us understand how the people of Israel became slaves in Egypt in the first place. They left their homes because to stay there was to die. Our biblical ancestors are not unlike the Afghani and the Haitians and the others who are on the road today, seeking life in new place because there is nothing for them in their homes but danger and death. Generations have passed, however, and the Hebrew people have grown numerous and have thrived in their new land, and a new Pharaoh has taken the throne, and he did not know who Joseph was. And he doesn't remember the stories about how Joseph had saved Egypt. When economic and political situations take a turn, people have a tendency, don't they, to close ranks. We ignore our history. We forget that we too, or our ancestors, were once immigrants from a new land. We project our fear onto outsiders. And so Pharaoh, this new Pharaoh, oppresses the Hebrew people, and he enslaves them, forcing them to build, to labor in dangerous and inhumane conditions. And even those conditions don't keep them from surviving. So Pharaoh kills all the baby boys to prevent them from growing up to be threats to Egypt. And it is into those conditions that Moses is born. Today's reading skipped over a fairly important chapter describing his birth, which I invite you to read this week. His mother, continuing the trickster qualities of her ancestor Jacob, manages to get Moses out of harm's way so he doesn't die according to Pharaoh's plan. Moses is the original boy who lived long before Harry Potter. He knew what it was like to not belong, to be different from everybody else. Adopted into Pharaoh's own house, but aware that he was a Hebrew, he saw the way he benefited and received privilege while his birth family was enslaved. Moses murders an Egyptian who is harassing a Hebrew man, but instead of being the hero from the Hebrew people, he is found wanting and judged by them when they see the crime, because they do not know him. He does not belong. Moses can't fix all the injustice he sees, and he is expendable to Pharaoh. He is an outsider to his own people, and so he leaves. And our story picks up today when he's 10 miles past the middle of nowhere, tending the flocks of his father-in-law, Jethro, the Midianite. And when I think of Moses, no matter how much I wish I had a better image, I confess I picture Charlton Heston. We are what we see on TV, right? And if we know the end of Moses' story, we think of him in heroic terms. He leads the people out of slavery in Egypt. Huzzah! But Moses is not historic and heroic at the beginning of his story. He's a mess. He's on the run. He doesn't have any friends. He has no clear plan for his future. He's just hiding in the nowhere with sheep. And it is this Moses that God calls. Not the Charlton Heston Moses. God calls the refugee, stateless Moses. Moses sees a bush on fire but not being consumed by the fire, and he turns to look at it, and God calls out to him, "Come no closer, and remove the sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." I don't know if you have the experience of being claimed as a member of a particular tribe or group of people. But as an adopted child, I find a lot of resonance in Moses' story. to be claimed as Moses is claimed here. I am the God of your father. To be claimed like that by the tribe that did not raise you is very powerful. Many of you have heard some of my adoption story, but when I first got my original birth certificate, my mother didn't want to meet me. She did tell me the name of the man she said was my father, but he had died many years before. But that family ended up claiming me. They did not know I existed until I called his daughter on the phone one day. And I knew when I reached out to her that calling her would reveal to their family her father's infidelity. I knew I might not get a friendly welcome when I called. But when I told her who I was and why I was calling, she said, "A sister? I've never had a sister. Welcome to the family." That was it. She claimed me, and we became family. It's a humbling gift to be welcomed and claimed by people like this. And one of my cousins in this family sent me the photo that's on the cover of your bulletin. It's a picture of the McCourt family, the cousins, taken in 1961 with their grandmother. And the cousin labeled everyone in the photo, and she wrote my name on the bottom, there on the left. Marci, not born yet. I wonder if people who know they belong, people who are welcomed and claimed, I wonder if when we're like that, we're better able to hear God's call. Because what is it that took Moses from being a refugee who didn't belong to become the leader of his people, standing up to Pharaoh? Because before God tells Moses what he needs to do, God claims him. And don't underestimate the power of that claim on Moses as he moves forward in his story. He isn't claimed just by anyone. And he asks, what is the name of this God that I tell them is claiming me, right? He asks that question. He's claimed by the God of his father and his grandfather and his great-grandfather. Even though he was raised in Pharaoh's house, Moses belongs to God and to the people of God. And in responding to God's claim, Moses is denying the claim of Pharaoh, which says he doesn't matter. He denies the claim of Pharaoh, which says other people are expendable for political gain. And on that holy ground at the burning bush, God makes sure Moses hears a better claim, and he offers him an important call. God sends Moses to Pharaoh to deliver God's people out of Egypt, to let his people go. Meeting birth family is interesting. Not all of them have wanted to meet me, but most of them have. And when they accept me, it's immediate. Like on that first phone call with my half-sister. They don't claim me because they've read my resume and have followed me on LinkedIn and know about my accomplishments, right? They don't know any of that. They just have accepted me. God knew all about Moses when the burning bush appeared. God knew Moses never felt at home, either in the Egyptian palace or with the Hebrew people. God knew Moses had taken a life, and God still claimed and called him. Moses talks back to God with all of his insecurities. You don't want me, God. I am nobody. I am a mess. I am not even a good public speaker. Claim somebody else. God gets a little annoyed at this point in the story, but even still the claim remains. Who do you think gives humans speech in the first place? God cries out in frustration. You're mine, and I have work for you to do, so get to it. I read the news often with much sadness because we kill each other in gun violence and in war, and we divide people and separate into groups. And I think it's easy to see a world where people know neither their claim nor their call. And when you don't know who you are, when you don't feel you are claimed and connected, then you act as if Pharaoh is right, subjugating others and disregarding the worth and value of their lives. I think God might still be a little frustrated with us at this point in our story, in truth. You're mine, God reminds us. I have work for you to do. Go do it. God still calls from burning bushes, and I don't know that we're noticing it. This past week, I was in Dallas cuddling my granddaughter, and I'm happy to share a million photos with you later. But I took a break from baby snuggling to visit two of my college friends. And being with them, I was reminded of how much they supported me and cared for me and loved me when I was in college, and still do today. And the claim we have on each other's life may not be easy for everybody to see. We live in different places, we don't see each other that often, but when I am with them, I know I am safe, and I know I am loved, and I know I am safe to be my imperfect and real self. When I am with them, I belong. And I think because of the love and support I received from them in college at a time when I didn't fully believe I was worth loving and being supported, I have been able to live into God's call in my life in better ways. So who are those people for you? The ones who claim you as their own. It might be family. It might be friends that you make into family. It could be relationships right here at this church, or at your AA meetings, or quilting groups, or other communities in which you find meaning and belonging. So think for a minute about the people with whom you belong and are known. And think for a minute about what we as Calvary need to do to create community so people know they belong here. So they belong here at our church and in our neighborhood and in our community and in our country and in our families. Do people know they are accepted as they are and claimed so they can be part of our communities? Do we treat people we meet as if we all belong to the same people, as if we're all connected to each other, the way the astronauts did on that space station, looking down at the Earth and seeing one planet? This may be the most important work we have to do these days, because it is so hard to live into your call when you don't know who or whose you are. In a few moments, we'll get to hear from a few folks from our Calvary community who have answered God's call to serve with our ministry partners. We hope you will hear a call in your own life to join in some of that work. They will be available to talk to you after worship in the atrium and to tell you more about how you can join. There's information in your bulletins too. Friends, God claims us and God calls us as God claimed and called Moses, because God has seen the misery and heard the cries of God's people. And we are the people to respond. We are the people to stand up to Pharaoh. We are the people to share the good news that Pharaoh's claim on us is a lie. Remember, Moses did not feel particularly qualified to do the job either, so don't let that stop you. We are standing on holy ground. May we hear God's call, because the world sure needs to know a better truth. Amen.